Welcome to the Running for Real podcast, where each week we bring you a conversation designed to help you create positive change in your life, community, and planet. It's a collective of conversations about running, the climate emergency, and social justice. Running for Real is for the brave, for those with courage and vulnerability. United by our love of running, we're driving momentum towards some of the really tough challenges we're facing as humanity. So come join me, Tina Muir, and let's get started. Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 263 of the Running for Real podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am excited that you are here and excited that you get to know and meet our guest today. This is going to be a really fun episode. I have to tell you, the audio was maybe not as good as I would have hoped it would be. This sometimes happens when I have guests that are in the same place. However, I think it is well worth the maybe less than perfect, but it's still worth listening to. The message is fantastic. The guests are amazing. I really look up to both of these people. And if you don't recognize them, it sounds familiar, but you can't think of why. They were featured on the Running Realized episode number 1 as our outro final creative piece, as Reph star and Patty Dukes are our become Circa 95, which is the band that they have created. They are one of the Tracksmith fellows. They make music, they bring music, art, culture, and running all together in an incredible mix. And I love their music. I love them individually, and I love them as a duo. And I really enjoyed getting to know them when I was in Beacon a few months ago. So without any further ado, we are going to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Then we'll be right to the episode with Patty Dukes and Reph star of Circa 95. I've been traveling recently. I took my family to Austin for a week to just get away, go somewhere different and explore a new city. Do you know what I did first thing every morning? Drank my Athletic Greens. When I was in New York with Maria, she noticed every day I got out my Athletic Greens. It was always how I start my day. It's always how I start my day at home, with 75 vitamins, minerals, whole food source ingredients to help fill those nutritional gaps in your diet. One scoop is going to give you the potent daily support for energy, gut health, immunity, recovery. It's NSF certified for sports, and they have an obsessive formulation that is trusted by pro athletes and health experts. Now you can get a 1-year free supply of vitamin D plus 5 free travel packs with your subscription by going to athleticgreens.com/Tina. There's a 60-day money back guarantee. And it's just great to have all the servings of everything that you need, all those supplements that you might be taking, all put in one place to look after your body for healthy aging, immune support, everyday gut health, sustained energy, improved recovery, and brain and memory support. Now, I am not kidding when I say I drink this every single day. I can't imagine my life without it. I get it for my family. I get it for my friends. I try and get as many people to connect with Athletic Greens as I can, because everyone that tries it loves it. I recommend putting it in ice cold water, filling it all the way to the top of the shaker, and you can thank me later. That's what I will say. Thank you so much for Athletic Greens. Go to athleticgreens.com/Tina to go check out that special offer. Patty, Reph, I am so excited to welcome you to the Running for Real podcast. Featured you on Running Realized, and I loved what you did there. And I'm excited that we get to explore more into your stories today. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having us. It's such a joy.
Word. It's a pleasure. We're happy to be here. I mean, we've got an opportunity to run with you a little bit and hang out. So making this interview happen, seems like the natural next step.
Yes, that was supposed to be my honor that I was going to say. I was so lucky to run with you guys, and now you've just taken that away from me, Reph. Although I should mention that when we did run together, just the funny thing of Patty, you and a group of people ended up lost a little bit in in the woods somewhere. And we were all very thankful for Find My Phone, as you were able to track. I was with Reph at the time and able to locate him, which meant you could locate us and the rest of the people. So it was kind of a funny day, but and it wasn't like a loss for an hour thing. It was literally 5-10 minutes, but still made us all thankful for iPhones, even though they may bring some negatives to our lives, but that's a good example of a positive. So
absolutely,
it was a fun day. And Reph, you and I jumped into this, I mean, idyllic. I can't think of a better place to jump into mid-run than the reservoir that we were swimming around in afterwards. So it was pretty cool. And I want to go back there every day. So maybe I'll make that happen someday. I mentioned yes, it was. Mentioned featured you Circa 95 on the Running Realized podcast. I think you were episode 1. We had you as the creative piece for the final segment. So you are an independent Afro-Latina hip-hop music group. And I'd love for you to start by telling the listeners who may not have put it together that was you, or maybe it's been a little while since they listened. Tell us a bit about what the impetus for creating Circa 95 was, and why you felt that you could merge that with another one of your passions, which is running.
Yeah, well, I guess a good place to start, right, is me and Patty. We've been working together for a number of years in different capacities, connected through hip hop, right? All the different elements of hip hop, from b-boying to DJing to MCing and graffiti, and education also. So like we built through our love of hip hop, we slowly built together, and that eventually led to the idea of creating Circa 95 as a hip hop group. And it's not only the music. I mean, we consider it a hip hop group, right? So it encapsulates all of the elements of hip hop and the lifestyle. And it's just a accumulation of that. So a number of years ago, me and Patty had a radio show, and we were doing a podcast.
He had a TV show as well, Little Birdie told me.
Yeah. So we were getting crazy. We were experimenting with like podcasting was just coming out. Yeah, it was a new form of media, live streaming. A lot of people, the bandwidth capacity wasn't there to even really do it right. But we was outside and we was live streaming for different spots and doing interviews and
doing open mics and performances and getting, artists and musicians together. So it just was a great playground for us to play with music and experiment, because we didn't have, now that we're back in school really, but we didn't have that kind of formal training. For us, we kind of trained ourselves when it comes to music and understanding how it is to like communicate with an audience and like build community. We were doing that on the ground in the Bronx and Washington Heights. So it was a natural progression for us to say, okay, how do we add more? How do we build more? How do we involve more people? And our music is really about the people. It's really about where we come from in our community. So, and 95, a lot of people are like, why did you call it 95? And I'll give you a tidbit, because we grew up in the 90s. So the 90s is really an influential time for us and like the golden era of hip hop. But the 9-5 is also a play on numbers, right? Because for us, it is our 9 to 5 to do music, art, and culture. This is our lifestyle every day. It's not something that we just hang up and leave in a room somewhere. Everywhere we go, we are Circa 95. And that's something that we want to like make sure that young people, especially when they're walking into spaces, that they don't all of a sudden have to put a suit and tie on and change who they are, that they're accepted for who they are wherever they walk into a room. So that's what Circa 95 represents. It's like to just be yourself. And it's not only us, it's you. It's everybody that wants to be down with Circa 95. And I think that that's what makes it special. And for us to connect it with running, we were always doing music and then running on the side, right? Like those two worlds are completely separate. They don't intersect, other than when people are running, they're listening to music, right? They're listening to the cadence and the different things that'll make them like have a better run. But for us as musicians, we're watching and being able to see things that inspires our writing, our songs, and also like our community and what's going on. So we're able to kind of like use the opportunity of running to like communicate back what we're seeing, what's going on. And I think that that's really connects to like the early elements of hip hop. And like, that's what hip hop is. It's how do I reach the people? How do I talk to the people? And for us, using running as like movement, as energy, as power, it's transformative. And we want more people to run, really. So how can we use hip hop as a beautiful tool that, you know, promotes lots of things right now, that promotes something that's beautiful and healthy, like running. And, you know, we're hip hop artists that run. We runners that rap and rappers that run. I mean, that's who we are.
I think there's a lot of there's a lot of feedback there, right? Like, it's not a one-way thing. And so like the music, right? When we started doing the music, we were just like putting out songs. We were in community, right? And we were like Patty said, we were hosting open mics. We were building on like a lot of different levels. So the music, we would put out the music, and that would become part of this conversation that's happening every day out here in New York City. And like running, a lot of times it can feel like it's an individual thing, right? We don't consider it like a team sport, really. But at the same time, in New York City, we were lucky, I feel like, to come into running again, or for the first time, at the same time that like there was this beautiful community of runners out there that were like we could connect with. And then we saw that power happening in New York City, the fact that all these people were coming together through running. And we were like, okay, that's a lot like what we was doing with hip hop, right? Why can't we just do both? And I think that speaks to the holistic experience. And what Patty was saying about like, we're Circa 95 all the time, right? We're also runners all the time. We are who we trying to embody who we are at all points in time. I don't like to say like, you know, we've always been successful, right? Because it's a challenge, right? To be who you are in all these spaces and represent that to the fullest and stand your ground, stand on your squares.
Yeah, stand on your truth and like what that means.
Yeah, but it's something that we strive to do, and we strive to share that with other people through through running, through all of these different things that we do. Because I mean, that at the end of the day, that's the essence. That's what uplifts people. That's what is going to make the world a better place.
For sure. And I love the way you are able to straddle that intersection of art, of running or sport and social justice. I mean, that fits in perfectly with this podcast, but it really is beautiful the way that you put it together. And you mentioned there about, merging them, bringing them together. I've been guilty, and I know society generally tells us that you have a passion, you have to focus on one thing, pick your thing. Maybe it's something different at different times in your life, but you better pick it because one is going to push the other out. So I'd love for you to explain more about how both things can exist in the same space. And maybe for other people, it's not hip hop and running, but it's something else.
Right.
How can they make each other better rather than them being competing for time and energy?
Right. I mean, and it's all about creativity and finding space to be able to make that happen, right? So if some people have a little bit more comfort in space and time, and others have to struggle for it a little bit more, right? But at the end of the day, it's like, it's about finding yourself and finding the things that you're passionate about, and adding more to that backpack, right? So like we're all born with a backpack that's like empty, but we want to fill it with the skills and the things that we love that carry us through our lives. We don't want to leave this world with an empty backpack. And so everything that you add on and you build upon is something beautiful. So whether you're interested in painting watercolors, but you're also into rock climbing, those things can intersect. Everything that you are as a human being can connect to other things and might inspire a new beautiful idea. So I love seeing the different like abilities that people have and being able to use them together, because I think that that's actually how we solve problems together and like figure things out, and we create new things. And I think we're a society that like we're tapped out with so many creations and inventions, but really we haven't really tapped out on like human potential and like what we can do as a community together and as people. And I think that's where it's at. It's like allowing other people to do and create without telling them, no, you can't do that. It's, yeah, you can. And like, try it. We don't know what it will be. I mean, and right now it's actually interesting that I find that only people that are rich or billionaires are given this space to like go explore to the moon or go outer space, right? People of color want to do a whole bunch of things too, right? But we don't have the money, the time, or the space. And that's where it's at. It's like, imagine if we were given the time and the money and the space at Circa 95, the amount of work that we could do in our community would be double or triple what we're even doing right now. It's more about connecting those things, but allowing all of those things to happen. Like I could have a garden, go for a run, and go clean up the beach. Like all of those things could be me in one day. And the next day I could go for a bike ride. Like we don't have to compartmentalize ourselves as human beings. All of these things can have a conversation. You know?
I would just watch out for like tapping in when you tap into like a new experience or a new group of people, right? Yeah. Sometimes that group or that experience might be telling you like you can only do this, or you know, and you gotta just you gotta watch out for that, right? Because that's not a real limitation. That's just the limitations that those people put on themselves in that group, and so that's something that we're constantly. Like when we pull up to places and we are who we are, we're not changing who we are for these different spaces and places. That people are, a lot of times they're surprised. They're like, oh, you know, it's a little jarring because usually people try to switch who they are for the different spaces. Right. Just pull up in those spaces as an authentic person. And when you do that, you know, usually people are receptive to that. If not, it might not be the right space. It might be that you have to find another space to do that activity because these people trying to keep them to themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the world is so big. Like there's so many things to learn. There's so many books to read. There's so many places to travel and to eat and to try food. Like let's be more open to like societies and civilizations and people and cultures. That's what I want. I want, as opposed to being closed off and like, I'm opposed to this and I've tried that and I'm too good to do this and I can't. I'm going to hurt myself. Let's try things. Let's be more open-minded, you know? And I think for us, when we have the folks in the community that come to us, they'll ask us, hey, is yoga okay? Yeah, it's okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
that was a real question that came to me.
Yeah.
And somebody hollered at me and was like, listen, they telling me that yoga is against my religion. And I can't do yoga now because they say that it's like conflicts with my religion. And we had a whole conversation, and we talked about how, you know, about the personal, how religion can be personal and creating space for your expression, and that it doesn't. That's that person's opinion. You know what I mean? But you know, you have to base it off of your. So if
it feels good to you and it works for you and it's not hurting anyone, right? Like. There's room to practice and to be okay with things, even when the people around you are telling you no, and how to give our friends like encouragement and freedom to say, it's okay to do yoga. You don't have to tell anybody. You know what I mean? Nobody in your house has to know. You could just tell us it's okay. You know what I mean? So we're also the people that encourage healthy living and, you know, and drinking water and going for a run and socializing. Like we encourage healthy behavior. And a lot of times people don't have other people to talk to. A lot of times it's, you know, you got to pay money for a therapist or go to talk to somebody here, or you have to have insurance to go to a doctor. We don't have a lot of those resources in the hood. We don't, right? So we need to create people that are also healthy, that are also willing to give the resources that they have. For people that are successful, a lot of the times they leave their communities. The fact that we're still in our communities and we're here as a resources and like people could actually talk to us and go for a run with us every week. We are accessible. There's not a lot of artists that can say that, you know what I mean? And that's the reality, is that I always want to be accessible to our communities. How could we help? What do you need? How could you know what I mean? It's not us taking. It's not us going into a community and saying, all right, what are we going to do here? Move things out of the way because it benefits or suits us. It's how do we make our communities better? How do we leave it better than we found it? You know, and as New York City kids who grew up in the city, we know this city better than anybody else. And we want equality. We want equity. We want everyone to have, you know, the same air and good water that everyone else has. But a lot of times people don't know how to like advocate for themselves. So a lot of times, you know, being able to use running and music and social change, all the things that we do to fight for those things is also important. So just being ourselves, it, like Reph was saying, is a huge part of it. but then backing it up with actually quality music and backing it up with like running that people are actually showing up, or we have 100 to 200 people showing up, backing it up with like, this actually matters and people care. Now people are paying attention, and it's a beautiful thing because it took time. It didn't happen right away, but guess what? We planted those seeds, and now look, boom, it's like we have a full garden. Now New York City is filled with all these running crews. So big ups to bridge runners and everybody in New York City for like creating this beautiful garden.
Thank you to Gooder for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. You will be hard-pressed to find a day I am not wearing a pair of Gooders. I have a pair on my head right now, and I love them. I love the fact that they are $25 or $35. I have plenty of pairs all over the place, so I always have a pair within reach, usually multiple pairs within reach, because they always seem to end up out of the place you need them, right, and then piled in one space where you just happen to leave them. For me, that's my desk. They're fun, they're fashionable, they're functional and affordable. No slip, no bounce. They're polarized, they're fun. Every purchase is backed by a 1-year warranty, and they have a 30-day free return. Even better, Gooder is a 100% carbon neutral company, and they are proud members of 1% for the Planet since 2018, as is Running for Real. If you would like to support me and this show, you can treat yourself to a pair or 2 or 3 of Gooders, and by heading over to gooder.com/Tina and get 15% off your order. That's 15% off at goodr.com/Tina. Your face will thank you. You'll see some of my favorite styles from my favorite colors, and you can go get yourself a few pairs there. But go to gooder.com/Tina.
Now New York City is filled with all these running crews. So big ups to bridge runners and everybody in New York City for like creating this beautiful garden.
And it's been amazing to see. Yeah, I mean, as an outsider who's been looking in on New York in that way, I mean, it's so good to see. And I mean, I hope the rest of the US, the rest of the world starts to take that mentality, take that approach onto in their own version of community. And do you feel the last year has strengthened like this community you talk about? How has the last year changed it? I mean, in many, you'd think it would totally fracture it, being unable to see one another. But how has it changed in the pandemic?
I think the New York City running community and also the hip hop community here in New York is super resilient. You know what I mean? Like people are strong and they continue to support each other, continue to connect, even at the height of the pandemic when no one could see anybody, right? You still had people, we still had we had a whole crew meeting where all the crews of New York City came together and
on Zoom
and tapped in with each other to see where everybody was at. How can we support each other? How can we continue building throughout the boroughs? And that's still going on to this day. Like, the people are connected regardless of where they are or what activities they're trying to do in their own hoods. We're still connecting each other. We're still supporting each other, and we're showing up for each other. Like Patty was saying, all of the things like when you need help, right? When you need support, even if it's just a phone call or some ideas or whatever, like. The community is there to support you. Right. And that's why it's been able to be so resilient through these different things. And our experience with hip hop is a similar way here in New York City. Like, we got our people that we could highlight. We could. That's why we could be successful as independent hip hop artists, as opposed to having to sign to a label or go through other avenues, right? Because we're connected with the people in the street and we have genuine support from the community, and they want to see it do well as much as we want to see it do well, because they see the impact that it has. It's not only just the music, it's not only just the running for us, right? But it's the impact that it has on the community. Mm-hmm. And you see the little kids celebrating when we have shows and people coming out with their families and barbecuing and just, bringing people together to celebrate is always a positive thing. And then the similar thing with the running, like we just had an anniversary for Milestyle. One of the running crews up in the BX.
The 4th anniversary.
4 years strong. Yeah. And we all came out and people came. One of the bridge runners ran up from Delancey. So, like, the community was there and they support. Luckily, we could come together a little bit more now.
Right.
So we were able to get a run in. Hopefully, with this new variant coming out, we're still not out of the woods yet. So the struggle continues.
Right. But I would also say that, that it did fracture it a little bit in the sense that, people used to go to each other's runs from the different boroughs, and everybody was kind of like more parked in their zone, wherever they were at. So it made the crews have to kind of strengthen their own communities even more, and actually force the community to stand up even more to all the things that were going on. Because everyone was, I would say, it's my opinion, but like before, everyone was kind of focused on themselves, right? And like, what's my race? What's my marathon? What's my next thing? What's the next event I'm going to? What's the thing? When this happened, right, with 2020, Black Lives Matter, the pandemic, George Floyd, like everything at once, it was beautiful to see New York put everything to the side, themselves, their ego, everything, and kind of come together, and to see beautiful movements that started, like running to protest, with Power Malu and Coffee, like people organizing things to make runners show up for other events, right? Not just for like a new shoe or something like that, really running for the things that matter. And those events have skyrocketed in participation and people wanting to commit and staying together. So I think that it also shows the resiliency, but we've also tapped into like that level of like runners really wanting to do something because they care, right? So like the Chinatown runners and like people doing things for like the Asian community, like it's beautiful to see that, and tapping into like other cities and like, okay, we're running in New York, you guys are going to be running in Chicago or in San Francisco at the same time. Like now we're also not only seeing New York, but we're seeing international, national like communities being formed. And that's also exciting. It's like a global thing where we could all take care of each other. So if we start in one block, then we go to a city and then we spread a little more. And that's what it's about. It's about
we used
love.
to be back in the days, we used to be on something like, it'd be dope if there was a community center on every block, right? With arts programming and
just free and open.
And technology for youth to use and whatever, and we still think that's a dope vision. And then adding on to it, we now think that it would be dope to have a running crew, right? In all of every block, everybody locked up, and they have a running crew or some type
every building reps their building,
some type of fitness initiative. You know what I mean? And so like that's another example of just the connections between the two things, like just how we support our hood, and then how we can see running support the hood.
Yeah, because and the thing is, obviously, again, we're limited with time, space, and money. We're based here in New York. We're focused on Washington Heights and the Bronx, uptown East Harlem. But imagine if we had the opportunity to go to Chicago. I would love to meet the young people in Chicago. You know what I mean? And run with them. They're so fractured. Like a lot of Latinos and like African American folks are separated in different parts of the country. I would love to bring people of color together. There's something about music, there's something about running that really, makes people have a good time, that makes people vibe. And there's so much anger and violence because of all the things that are going on, right? And I know that it's hard because we're living in it. We're still living in a world where it's like oppressive and like depressing,
everybody's
right?
Stratified. Also, like if you look at it, everybody's pushed into their own corner. And even with running, like, you look at the socioeconomic factors, right, and how that separates people. And,
exactly.
And mostly, like, in my experience, when I look at running, it's mostly people who are working professionals or who have a certain stature. Maybe they went to school, right?
And ran track.
The kids from the block, they looking at it like, yo, what are these people, like, they run into my block, like, gentrification must be coming soon, right? As soon as you see somebody jogging on your block, you're like, okay, what's going on?
Yeah.
And we're really trying to break that barriers down, right? And it comes from both sides. Like, is the kids is looking at it like what they doing it, but at the same time, it's not very welcoming. Like the way that people, they moving around, they got bread, they looking at you like you from the hood. Like, what are you doing here? That was my experience when I first started running a long time ago.
It has an elitist mentality, right? Like, and you're out of touch and out of reach. But really, there's so much potential in the hood. You know what I mean? When I look at Reph, when I see him running so fast, that I'm like, wow, this is him now. Imagine if Reph was part of a program, you know what I mean, when he was a kid and had the time and the money and the potential to make something happen. He could have been in the Olympics.
Yeah, we didn't have.
You know what I mean?
We didn't have
we didn't have those programs. We don't got no programs. So that's also it. There's a little boat in every neighborhood. You know what I mean?
For sure.
There's a little Mo Farah everywhere. There's a Sha'Carri in every block. Okay, so if you live Sha'Carri, you're like, oh my God, there's a girl like her in every block. Yeah. Who's gonna help her get to the Olympics? You know what I mean? And that's where it matters that people, just give a damn.
Especially in the cities. I feel like when I'm not from, I'm from New York, right? Yeah. So I know the experience in New York, in the city. And in the city, it's not like in the hood, it's not a lot of running programs. It's not something that people thinking about. It's not like you're not engaging with that part of life. So that's something that we've, once we picked it up and we was like, okay, we out here, we doing this. We want to get the kids off the block that's like chilling on the corner. Like those are the kids that we want running.
And we've gotten a couple kids to like run a marathons. Amazing. And that was crazy, you know what I mean?
Marathons, I threw my man, we got him a singlet. We signed you up for a race. Now you got to start training. Yeah. He did a couple. He went from,
the couch to
couch to a hat. He was a pretty healthy person. He played basketball every day, but he really went out there and did his thing. And I felt proud, and I feel like that's what we're looking for. We're trying to bring more people up like that. And sometimes when we run in the streets, you hear people yelling like, yo, and we yell back, and then they lick up, and now they running with us. I can't tell you how many people we've just kind of picked up off the street.
Because they've seen you running by.
Yeah, and now they run with us.
Every Monday.
Which is inspiring. It also changed our perception of our neighborhood also, because like running through the hood, like you grew up here your whole life, and I've always felt like I went all parts of my hood, and people know me and I know them. But once I started running, I started seeing parts of my neighborhood that I've never seen before, and kind of started connecting with these spaces that were kind of being unused, and now we're using them. Which is super important.
And we care about them, right? We care about them, especially learning about the different landmarks and the historical pieces. Like for us as people of color, like it's really dope to actually learn about the history from our communities and our neighborhoods, especially in Washington Heights, that they're just so, for Lena Horne to have lived there, Paul Robeson, you know what I mean? And running by those buildings where they would have come out of. It's like we are the artists now, but they were the artists of that time. And like how hard it was for them, and man, how hard it is for us. So it's also like we're just in the same galaxy frequency, right? We're just in different like channels. Yeah. And like it's so interesting. And like how do we just survive this ride that we're in?
And Reddy has made that information like more accessible and more real for us. Like we could be in our block just chilling, but like Patty said, right down the block, we have a home that will possibly used to ferret slaves away from slavery. Right.
It was a stop on the Underground Railroad. And we would have never learned that without running. By running in our neighborhood and seeing what's going on and seeing this group that actually is trying to get landmark status on this house because it was a stop on the Underground Railroad was huge, because now we're able to say, okay, this is what you guys are doing. Great. How do we amplify? We'll tell all the other runners. We'll tell everybody in the community. Yeah. So we become a big mouth to like what people are already doing that's great, Yeah. So whether it's the young people that are starting a little garden in front of their school, we'll tell people about it to help them, or landmark status or a building, like whatever anyone's doing something good in our community, we want to amplify it even more.
I love the passion coming out of you both with this. It's clear from what you've been saying that it's working and it's happening, and it's, as you said, a good template for other cities, other places, if they don't have their own versions of you somewhere. But and just the enthusiasm you have, I can't wait to see, how you do continue to change things in the future. Reph, I would love to. I saw a Instagram post of yours from a while back, and it talked about not letting anyone dim your light if you didn't go to school, about, the path to, I'll just read it. The path to knowledge of self and the world around us takes many forms. The world needs your voice, love, creativity, and energy to ensure its survival. It's never too late to get in the game. And then I'll preface this with a warning that I'm about to swear for anyone who has kids, cover their ears. It says, finishing up with, shit, look at me. So that probably sounds funny coming with my accent, right? So Reph, tell us about that. Like, that's not something that people talk about often, but it is obviously a big part of, you had to work against these voices that were telling you, or these thoughts maybe that were saying, you didn't go to school, therefore your voice isn't valid, or maybe you never did have that voice and you're trying to show you see it in others. So tell us about that thinking.
Yeah. So both me and Patty both kind of went back to school and kind of try to complete that journey. Patty recently graduated. Now she's in graduate school, and I went to undergraduate, and I'll be graduating this year. I'm going into my next year. Yeah, but I'm going into my senior year. And it's been a long journey. Sometimes I feel like I'm the oldest person in my classes and doing my thing, but I think it was important to complete that journey and go back into it, because like I wrote in that post, it's funny you brought it up because you put stuff on Instagram, but you're just like, okay, when is it? It's done. But I think that a lot of times you feel like, I decided I was an artist. Like 21, I was like, listen, I'm an artist. I went to Syracuse University for a semester, and I was like, I went to Syracuse University for entrepreneurship, the business school. And I decided I'm an artist, and I got out of there, and I came back to New York City, and I started an art career, right? I started doing graphic design. I started creating. I had shows. We eventually I met Patty. We started making music, right? And all of that stuff was super fulfilling. And I actually wouldn't have it any other way, because I felt like it allowed me to, outside of the constraints of like college, like this is how it's supposed to be, right? I was creating art outside of those parameters, and just because I didn't know what those parameters were, at the same time, is a whole part of the world, right, that goes through this college experience and lives their lives with that, and they don't. It's an insular community, right? I can believe as much as I want in myself, but it's important to some people that document. And so that was part of the idea of like, okay, I'm gonna go back to school and get this documentation. And then also part of it was like, like I put in that post, to inspire young people, whether or not they go to college or not, or they do, right? It's about expressing yourself. It's about getting your voice out there. It's about your voice being heard, and it's important for it to be shared regardless, because I feel like a lot of the knowledge that I've accumulated over time that is actually what works great in college, right? It came from the streets. It came from my community. It came from my parents. It came from just living life. So there's a lot of different paths that people could take. Every path is individual and it's special to who you are. You just gotta be open and willing to connect in lots of different ways and take on the challenges like the school challenge and go for it. Like, just go for it and make it happen. A lot of times I feel like we go with the saying, like, say yes in your life, right? There was a whole movie about that where it got him in a whole lot of trouble. But, it's all about saying yes. Eventually he realized what the deal was in that movie. It's all about saying yes and then figuring out how you're going to make these things happen. But say yes in your life. If anybody listening to this podcast, right, try to say yes more to the things that you're scared of. Try to say yes more to the things that make you nervous, and get into those feelings and work them out and challenge them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would say that the things that are meant for you are meant for you, and no one's going to take those things away from you. Like there's things that are completely destined to happen to you and for you. Imagine that the world is conspiring to make everything happen that you want.
Yes.
Right? That the world is on your side, that you have everything in your disposal, even though you might not think so, but you do. You have everything that you need to make something happen. And if you believed it 100%, that if you jump, that something's going to catch you, right? You would try. You would 100%. Try because you know that you have no idea what would happen. And that's what we've been doing. We've just been flying. And every single time, something has caught me. Yeah. Every single time.
Stay flexible because it might not be the thing that you think is going to catch
exactly.
you. But it's something else, right? You got to be willing to just stay flexible because that's how life is. Life is not going to give you everything that you are demanding of it, but it will continue moving you to the next level. As long as you're alive, you got to be living, right?
Thank you to Picky Bars for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. I have been loving my Picky Bars. I have I have a bar almost every day. I have one of their breakfast forms every day, be it the oatmeal, be it the pancakes, be it the granola. Every day, Picky Bars features into my life, and I absolutely love it. It's going to give you quick energy with fruit and natural sugars deliver those carbs. It's going to give you sustained energy through nuts, seeds, and plant-based protein. It's delicious, no fillers, no artificial ingredients. There's all kinds of foodie flavors that they have come up with creative names, and they're just really fun. They are soft, they're easily chewable, so you can eat them while you are on trail runs or on the go, which I am a big fan of. And they have put a lot of time and energy into making everything fun and enjoyable. I have been a Picky Club member for a few months now, and I'm really enjoying it. And with a code Tina, you can get an additional 20% off the Picky Club or 20% off your order of 25 plus by going to pickybars.com/Tina, and that will give you my page, my favorite items, all these special discounts, and some of the things that I have talked about today. So you can go to pickybars.com/Tina to get yourself that 20% off code to see what I and so many others are talking about. I love Picky Bars, and you will too.
As long as you're alive, you got to be living, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. And I 100% agree with you. I wish you could convince my 3-year-old of that. He'll be like, I want this. I want that. She definitely doesn't get it yet, but I'll give her time. But no,
she has a lot of time. She has a lot of time.
I know. Me trying to, I do actually have to remind myself of that sometimes, like things that I've learned about like culture and just like growth in my, by the time this comes out, 33 years. Sometimes when she does something that's like, she's like, oh, I want to wear this bright pink princess dress. I'm like, no, we don't want to be wearing pink princess dresses. And I'm like, wait. You're looking at this with your lens of what you've accumulated all these years, and you're inserting it on a 3-year-old. Like, she is never going to get this. So I have to remind myself of that. But I love what you said right there. And I'm always talking about the same thing. And I do want to add that sometimes I feel like that means saying no to things when they don't feel right, and trusting that the yes is going to come if something doesn't feel like it's the right thing for you. By saying no, the yes will be allowed to like come through and find its way to you. So like you said, Reph, it might not be the way it looks. And I think I notice this often, and we can switch now to running in terms of like BQs, which Reph, you're working on.
Yeah.
And people often say like, I want a BQ, it has to be now because I'm just getting older. And I'll say, yeah, but if you want to BQ, you could BQ when you're in the 60 to 65 category. Like it doesn't have to be in the, when you're in your 20s or even your 30s or 40s. Like, so I think you're right that we have to, say we want something, say yes to things, but then, like you said, be flexible and let it work its way out the way it was going to. So, thank you for that. Let's
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it doesn't matter that if it happens, as long as it happens, you know?
Yeah. And I think it takes a light hand, it's a balance of pushing and also knowing when to back off, like you said, right? And I think that's also with running too. It's all about finding that balance of how could you push yourself, you push yourself, but also knowing when to take care of yourself, when you have to do the recovery, and what is too much, and getting in tune with all of the messages that the universe is sending you, not only like the physical messages in your body, like the pain or whatever, but also just what's happening around you and what's happening in your life and what's happening spiritually. Like all of those messages we have to be listening for and connecting with, and the stronger that connection, the stronger just living, but then also like for running specifically, I think that's super important. And staying connected with yourself,
right, is
very important.
For sure.
Yeah,
I think for me, running, I mean, it's such a humbling sport, really, because for me, someone who I admit all the time, I'm not the fastest runner. I'm like, I love running, but I'm not fast. I'm like a turtle, right? Like I'm at the back and he's the rabbit.
You said that recently.
All the time. I'm totally the turtle, but I love being there. And the thing is that after a while, it's also a great reminder of being a human being and what it is to be among other people, right? Because some days you will be in the front of the pack. But the other days, there's people that are going to pass you. And you could get really angry with yourself or with those people that have passed you because they're stronger, they're better, they're faster, whatever it is that day. But you literally have to let go of your ego. You have to let go of all of the things that are holding you back and let those people pass you by. And it's one of those humbling things. That's why I call it humbling, because you can get angry at your own self for not being fast enough, not being good enough. And especially as a girl, there's like, I'm not skinny enough, I'm not pretty enough. All the things that you can tell yourself, that's all not true. They're just running their race and you have to run your own. And I think that running reminds me every day that I'm in my own race, that I'm in my own pace, and I do not have to chase anyone. I only have to chase me. Like I have to chase what I'm, looking straight ahead at.
I think just to continue that, that's a good way to get injured. You know what I mean? Like if you out here trying to chase people down, I've done it myself, where I try to run with people and I'm trying to chase them down.
Right.
And then like I'm hurt later on. And it's like, why was I even trying to chase these people down? I could have just been, like Patty said, running my own race, running my own pace. And so it's like you got to find that balance, back to the balance thing.
Do you think though that you have to I almost feel like every runner has to either get injured, get overtrained, or something go wrong to learn. Like I feel like that's a lesson that us saying this or someone saying this to you, it never quite goes in until you've had that reality check of losing the running or it being pulled away from you to really make it sink in.
Well, I can say 100% that has not had to happen to me. It has all synced in and I've never had an injury. I have been running consistently now, let's say for 7-8 years. Yeah. No injuries. Okay. I run my pace. I don't run faster than I need to. I have my 5 hours at a marathon. No whistles, no bells, no injuries. No complaints, no nothing for all this time. And that's because, again, even when people are like, oh, but you got to do it like this, nope.
How did you come in with that mindset? I'm so impressed.
I don't know. I mean, my dad really did a number on me. And I think after his Caribbean style training was so intense that I've just eased into it. And, I'm more of a Bob Marley style runner, right? Like, let's just chill. Let's just vibe. Let's just have a good time. you know?
So I'm on the other end of things. And I would say, while you were saying about learning from injury, I was going to say, like, it feels like you have to learn a few times.
Every day.
You guys really are the tortoise in the hare, aren't you?
Yeah.
It don't sink in, you know what I mean? And then you just out here pushing yourself again, and you end up chopping yourself up. And I always just feel like I'm always in that space of I could get injured or I could like get better fitness. I've been in this, like, especially like when I'm like right now training for these marathons. It's such like a balancing act to try to get where I want to get fitness wise, and then also like avoid getting injured, and then like throw in the other like skateboarding accidents or like random biking falls or whatever, you know, because
he's super active.
This city lifestyle here. That's always a setback. I've actually done a lot better this marathon season, this cycle right now, because like I skateboarded today and I was like nervous. I was like, oh no. But I had to get from point A to point B quickly. So I was like, I'm going to do it. But I was super nervous out there. I was like, I don't want to fall over. My knees are like gold right now. All of my body's golden right now. I don't want to hurt it. So, you know, just back to the balance, back to the pushing and pulling.
Back to the training.
And back to the training. And I just marvel at Patty because she doesn't get injured.
I know. So you mentioned there about your dad, who was a very important influence in your life. You ran as a kid and then stopped in high school. So tell us about, your dad's impact on you as a runner, both then and now.
Yeah, well, he was actually in the military in the Dominican Republic. So that also adds to like his intensity and like his energy and his 6 o'clock morning on a Saturday after you've been like going to school all week, right? And trying to wake you up to go to the track and make you do, you know, repeats and all these drills and all this stuff. And what's crazy is that my younger sister, she's like a year younger than me. She's really fast. So my dad would always take us out, both of us, and he would make us train. And also, I feel like it was a way for him to kind of like show off, like that his daughters were faster than everybody else. So he would go to the track and he would make us go while there were races going on. And he would sign us up for like the Pee-wee races and make my sister win. So I always knew that I wasn't the fast one because he gave a little bit more attention to her. And I used to just complain a lot because he just, come on, 6 a.m. when you're like 8, 9 years old, you do not want to be there. But later on, you know, once he passed away, I was like 19 years old and he had a heart attack, you know, a heart failure. So even though he was running and being physically active, eating wasn't necessarily the best. Fried foods, right? So like for me, it was an opportunity to reevaluate because we came from the Caribbean, Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic. We were eating fresh foods. Once we come to the New York and the Bronx, everything is processed. Everything is fried. It was like, oh my goodness, our world has been shifted upside down. And really it was an opportunity for me to see like what's going on here. How could we do this differently? You know, and we were just being at home on a computer on our iPad and I wasn't being as physically active, but I was going to school and I was like, you know what, let me go back to the track. So I went back to the track where he had me at. And I was like, wow. And now I'm there by myself. So, and it's interesting that I went to the place where he took me and I was just running in circles because that's all I knew, right? Like in the tracks, I'm just running in circles. But I kept going for a couple of weeks. And then all of a sudden I see Reph running into the track where I'm at. And I'm like, oh, finally, I'll get company to run with me in the circles. And he's like, no, let's run out in the street. And I'm like, what do you mean in the street? He's like, no, like this is boring to just run in a circle. Let's just go. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So I literally followed him in the street. That was my first time that I ever ran in the street. And I don't even know why I had it before. It's like things you don't know and you don't learn and you don't pick up unless someone just opens the door and introduces it to you. I knew him. Yeah. I just said yes. And I said, okay. Oh, after that, we were running in the street. We were looking for races. We signed up for our first 5K. It was horrible. It was the worst 5K in our lives. It felt like a marathon. We had to start and stop.
Shout out to the Hunt Sport Hustle. Really dope race.
That doesn't even happen anymore.
Exactly. It doesn't happen anymore. It was in support of the homeless community.
And Sustainable South Bronx.
Sustainable South Bronx, an organization out in the Bronx that was doing work with the
and bringing green jobs and, and housing and like just providing opportunities. But it was in the back where all the factories are and like it's just open road. So it's like not great quality of air, not, it's nothing great to see.
It was very hard.
But let me tell you, there were people, a friend of ours, Flaco, his father was running, and he's like, these are older men, like who probably have pacemakers, right? Like they were running so fast, and I was like dying, and I'm like, oh my God, how are these older people in better shape than us? Like I knew we had to make a huge change in our lives. We knew, I literally wanted to throw up after that race. I said, we made a bet to ourselves. I said, we're going to have to get in shape. And next year we're coming back and we're going to have to finish the 5K without stopping. Because we started and stopped so much. It was ridiculous. We came back the next year and we completely did the race without stopping. And that was when like the passion and everything just, when we were able to see the change and the growth happen in one race, and it was just on a 5K. So if anyone out there is listening, I would say, start with that 5K, see what you do with that one, and then sign up again for you next year and see, wow, I did a little bit better, bit better. Yeah.
I think what's interesting about Patty's story, a few quick notes about Patty's story with her dad, right? One of the things is that they had built a new track, right? So the track that Patty had those experiences as a kid with her father is where Yankee Stadium is today.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So they built Yankee Stadium over that track. So it's gone. It was an old school track, and
they moved it over.
But they built a new track next to where Yankee Stadium used to be, kind of, and them building that track and kind of like having bringing that area back and having those spaces accessible. That was part of what like brought Patty back over there, was that space was there. You know what I mean? And so that's brings some importance to like, we need these spaces in our communities, right? We need track spaces. We need athletic spaces. We need pools. Like there's hardly any pools in Washington Heights that are accessible to like the community to rock out in.
Yeah.
Like so to learn how to swim, right?
Exactly.
Basic skills. We taught our friends of ours this summer actually how to learn how to ride a bike. And now he's riding and he's able to go places, but he's a full grown man and adult that didn't learn how to ride a bike. And like, that's also part of, for us, is what are the things that are out there that we've never done that we should try? And how can we get other people to try it too?
And then the other thing I was going to say is that as a kid, like her father brought her out to the track, right? And he mostly did like track workouts. That was what he knew. And so I think that's why you initially went out and did that.
Yeah.
On the other side, like growing up, I didn't run with my dad, but my dad ran regularly, right? And he ran in the streets, right? Here in Washington Heights. And he would go out and do his running thing. His whole fitness thing, he would do kind of like himself, like, and it would cross here and there. I mean, I got a black belt in Taekwondo, and he loved that. And we would, do fight and whatever, work out and spar and stuff. But like, he would take it easy. It's like fighting with your kid. But he had a running thing that he would be doing in the streets. And I had like a few false starts, I would say. Like when I was like 20, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go running, right? And I had memories of my dad as a kid doing his thing. So I was like, I'll just do that. But I met against that. Like, it just didn't seem accessible to me because, like, when I went out, you had, like, people looking at me weird, you know what I mean? And, like, what's this kid? Because it's a pretty insular community at that point. I guess, like, in the 90s, right, or the early 2000s. And then eventually when Patty was out there doing her thing, and I was, like, trying to do, like, P90X at home, and like, Patty was out there doing her running thing. I thought, like, I could, like, pop this DVD in and try to get my fitness on. And what I realized is that I needed to be outside. I needed to be with that's cool. And I'm not knocking P90X. I think that it works for whoever it works for. But I needed to be with people. I needed to be in the street. And like
that's
Patty
when our
said,
bodies started to change.
Yeah, we started connecting and outside and like going out and doing the runs. At that point, it was the summer of fuel. Like Nike had like this fuel band that they had put out, and so we were gathering our points on our fuel band and visiting and doing the different events that they had, and all of those things kind of came together and sparked. Shout out to Knox. Knox was out there, doing those runs, doing those community runs, and that's also that was like
a huge inspiration.
Yeah, that was our first kind of view of the New York City running community was through those community runs. The Friday runs. It was like dope.
The locals, No, I mean it. One of those was my birthday. It landed on my birthday, and it was the most epic night because we had like ice cream balls. It was amazing.
What?
Ice cream balls. They were like the size of my head. I mean, it feels like it, but they were like fried dough, around the outside, and like a nice cold ball of ice cream on the inside.
I always wondered how they do that. That's amazing.
I know, right? It's so amazing. It was such a great treat after a long hot run. It was fantastic. But, just getting a chance to see the city and being able to get the historical elements in culture, that was also like the seeds that were planted. And it's great because, Knox comes from that music and that culture as well. So it's like a lot of us that are running, that we connect with each other, we come from similar backgrounds, and it's really beautiful to see that we haven't let it go.
And Patty shouted out Bridge Runners earlier and Black Roses and all of the crews that like kind of were putting it down at that time.
Yeah.
And the blueprint for how to build community, right? How to engage with the city, how to engage with arts. Like we're just building on that. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't even say
it's the same with hip hop, right? It's like the same foundations that like, the founding fathers of hip hop and the founding godmothers of hip hop. You know what I mean? It's the same with running, and it's like, how do we continue these legacies to go forward?
And how do we inspire other people to take it from here? Like, it's not only on us. It's on whoever's listening to this podcast to start activating their communities, activating and go
hit us up and invite us to run.
We want to run in your hood.
Yeah, let us know.
Well, you're welcome here anytime in St. Louis if you want to. I mean, we're far away, but I think I would love to have you. Okay, I want to finish up here with talking just about being Tracksmith Fellows. As I want to spend most of the time that we talk about this with you guys explaining the impact. So Tracksmith had, I think they're actually open again now, although potentially not when this comes out, opened up the opportunity to fund and support, how many was it? Six of you? Six artists, groups, creative outlets of some kind for 2020 through 2021. And as I said, they're opened it up again. So you two, Circa 95, were selected as one of the recipients, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I want to just, so I was talking to Tommy Bailey, Tommy Runs, who was on the podcast a few weeks ago. And this wasn't on the episode, but we were talking outside of that about, he was saying that the best way that a brand can support those from underrepresented communities is to invest in their businesses, invest in their creative outlets, invest in the things that they are working towards. And so I would love to hear, like, if that's the same way that you look at this with Tracksmith, allowing people to really have a chance, have the opportunity to really see what they can do with some support. And what Tracksmith giving you this opportunity has meant to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think first off, they really stand by that in that, they out here supporting what we want to do, what artists are trying to do, as opposed to trying to control that. A lot of times when people get involved with brands, it's like you're getting on board with that brand. And in this fellowship, it's more like Tracksmith is getting on board with our brand.
Yes.
And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think that being like the seed, it's something that I feel like I wasn't even really tuned into at first, because the expectation is that you're going to get on board with their brand. But just as we've gone through this whole year of being fellows and seeing how supportive they are and how they have just created a space and a support for us to do our thing, is a beautiful thing. It also took some time to getting used to, you know what I mean? Just because we're not used to that type of experience. But I think that's a blueprint for how brands should be working with communities, just communities in general.
And I mean, we're super grateful and we're honored to be the recipients of this fellowship, especially the first years that, that it's happened. And also for us to be, hip hop music artists. Cause I think for us to be the only hip hop project that was selected is also huge, because it's, it's big for New York City. It's big for all of us in our communities, and it's just big for the culture. So it's also pressure in our sense for me, because I want to do well by this situation, right? Like the project, and we're building it up going towards the New York City Marathon. So we're working on music, we're putting content together. So expect some really, really cool stuff happening soon. But I think that adds to it. It's like, we don't have a label. We don't have the traditional stuff behind us. It's me and Reph that do everything behind the scenes and make our music, make our art, go in our communities, and we handle everything. And so to have a team of people that are behind the scenes saying, okay, what do you need? And it's not just the finances. It's like the actual energy and support. What are the connections? What are the networking? What are the tools? What are the resources? This is the thing you could use. Try this. Those are the things and the steps that you can use to level up. And that's what we need, more visibility to what we're doing. A lot of the times, good things don't travel as fast as bad news, right? Like bad news, everybody knows that something bad happened, and immediately, right? Twitter, everybody erupts in the bad news. But imagine if good news erupted in that way, like, wow, this good thing is happening here, and like how the positivity could, explode. So it's also trying to see an experiment, really. Can music and can running, can hip hop and all of this coexist? Can all of this come together into something really dope and really powerful for the community? I haven't seen any other hip hop group do something like this.
Yeah.
And I think that is also part of what makes it dynamic is we're willing to try. We're willing to say yes. We're willing to just jump and see what happens. And, we're just grateful for this opportunity, because for Big Pun and the Beat Nuts, and they didn't have an opportunity like this to say, let's go around it our way, if they had to do different things. So super grateful for this opportunity for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's dope that we can, I think that it's always a risk involved in getting involved with people you don't know.
Right. And that might not know the culture.
Yeah,
right.
And you saying that you're going to support them. I was saying from their side, like, from both sides. It's like, okay, how does this stuff actually come together? Like, we embody it every day. We live this, right? So we're living the rapping and the running and hip hop and fitness, right? But for them, on the tracksmith side, they might not have it. They don't know.
Right.
So they're taking a risk to get involved with us the same way we're taking a risk to get involved with them. And, it's just a exercise in trust and belief and faith that everybody is on deck. And so far, everybody has been in it. And I think that's really a beautiful thing.
I think it comes to the core of that we're all runners, and like the fact that we're not like, it's not a gimmick when Patty and Reph are like, we're runners. We actually will pull up on you and we will run with you. We will run out in these streets. We have run marathons. We have run these 5Ks. So it's not like it's like, oh, we're hip hop artists. We have a music and we run. Like, it's like a gimmick to sell. It's like, no, this is actually who we are. Come with us. Come on this journey, on this side of things. And I think that that's also what makes it special and why they invested in us, because they know that we are who we say we are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's important. It's being genuine and having integrity. And when you have those two things, it's easier to trust somebody that's genuine and has integrity, because like it just is. You know? Yeah. It just is.
Being transparent.
Yeah.
Being real with people. I mean, we always say that about the marathon. It's like, yo, after you run a marathon, people are so like just broken down that they can only be real. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's, for me, that's one of the beauties of it, of running in general. It's like when it breaks you down to your most rawest form, right? Like how you connect with people at that moment. You build with people at that moment, and you get to see just who people really are inside. Yeah. And so, you know, that's like we strive for all the time. Like, you know, they say keeping it real is kind of cliche nowadays, but you know, we try to keep it real as much as possible, and real with ourselves, real with the world around us, real with Trashcliff, real with the running community. Like, you know, it's all real, and that's what we strive for, reality. Yeah. The good, the bad, everything in between.
I love that. I love both of you. And, you know, being on Running for Real, you were absolutely in the right place with what you just said there.
Boom.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of glad I got that trademark when I did, or I definitely think that would have been snapped up by now. So tell the listeners, just to finish up here, you've got some new tracks coming out, doing some shows. You know, obviously a lot of these are going to be in the New York area, but if someone can make it, or if they can't, is there a way they can follow along with what you're up to for the rest of the year?
Yeah. First off, make sure you tap in on circa95.com, CIRCA95.com. Sign up for our mailing list. We will promise we won't spam you. We'll send out only when appropriate. But definitely we're going to have some upcoming shows here in New York City. We also have some shows planned for different parts of the country, internationally. Hopefully, if like the Berlin Marathon pops off and we get out to some of these international races. What I would do is connect with the mailing list, and then also just stay tapped in on like social media at Circa95, at Repstar, at Patty Dukes. And lastly, like, we're real people, so just feel free to holler at us.
Directly,
Directly, and be like, what's up? I'm trying to start a running crew in my hood.
Any advice or tips, we're here to help. Absolutely.
I'm trying to make music. I'm trying to make art. I'm trying to express myself. I have a young person that I need to get into some programming. Like, we are plugged up all over the community, all over the United States, and I'm sure that we could be a beautiful resource for some of the people out there.
Love that. Yeah. Thank you both. Your heart and energy and passion is just shining through. I just want to thank you so much for being here today. So excited to get to know you both more and more as we go on. And thank you for sharing your journey. Appreciate you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tina. Looking forward to running with you soon.
Yeah. In New York City, looking forward for you to coming out and running. And then maybe y'all sit out in St. Louis. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Before we end this episode, I just want to take a moment to shout out my podcast editor, Jeremy Nessel, who has done such a wonderful job of looking after my podcast, taking out all the mishaps in the episodes, while still keeping in the vulnerability and the realness and the rawness of the conversation. This is not one of those podcasts where I take out the ums and the ers and the sometimes the delay in words, because I think it's very important to keep that authenticity. We're surrounded by perfected and manicured everything, and I think it's really important that Running for Real stays that way. So thank you to Jeremy for your work. I also want to thank Maria Vargas and Amber Moore, who are also part of my team. They've been a big part of this community and me being able to build this brand. So just want to give them a shout out too. All right, let's get right back to the end of this episode. Thank you so much to Reph and Patty for joining me today. I really enjoyed that episode. I think they have so much to add and we can learn from them, grow from them. And if you haven't already checked out their music, go check it out. There are plenty of links in the show notes for you to go look at, to go see what they are up to follow along with their journey. and they're going places. I'm really excited for them and their running career in the coming months. Let's see what they can do there. I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors, which are Athletic Greens. You can get a 1-year free supply of vitamin D plus some travel packs when you go to athleticgreens.com/Tina. Take that every single morning as part of my daily routine. I want to thank Gooda for sponsoring this episode. You can get 15% off your order at Gooda, which is another of our sponsors today. I'm a huge Gooda fan, always wearing Goodas. You will rarely find me on a day without Goodas. You can go to goodr.com/Tina to go check that out. And finally, thank you to Picky Bars. Picky Bars are one of my favorite fuels. I eat their products almost every day. I gave my daughters some of the chocolate chip pancakes this morning. They are delicious. I also add in some chia seeds and hemp seeds and flax seed just to bulk them up a little bit for the kids, but they are delicious. You can get yourself 20% off your order plus some additional bonus discounts if you sign up for the Picky Club at pickybars.com/Tina. So you can go check out Athletic Greens, Gooda and Picky. There will be links in the show notes for all of those. Thank you for joining me today. If you haven't checked out a Together Run, there is another one coming on Monday. I appreciate you and see you next Friday.